The winning blueprint presents.
In the lab room.
While you're here, go ahead and sub up. Welcome. You are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. Today, we find out what's new in Chicago. That's right. We'll be talking Chicago Bears football. And this is courtesy of YouTube subscriber Cubone Studios. Cubone got the Bears up. And if you want to see a team on this program, simply be the first to leave a comment at the bottom of this video, simply stating the phrase next and the team that you want to see next. So we'll be talking Chicago Bears football. There were a lot of shakeups with the Bears in the offseason. And anytime you get a new head coach, you get new coordinators, there's going to be a lot of turnover on the roster. Some guys are going to be back. A lot of others won't. And so we'll get into the Chicago Bears in depth and talk about all of the changes in Chicago. In order to go in with the new with the Chicago Bears, first we got to go out with the old, get rid of all of the old stuff in Chicago. So let's handle that business right away. Let's go out with the old with the Chicago Bears. So in order to go in with the new, out with the old, whatever the case may be, I need the assistance of not only my big board behind me, but of course, my trusted handy dandy pointer. I've got both. That means I'm ready to talk Chicago Bears football. So let's get to the big board and talk about out with the old with the Chicago Bears. And here's a Bears team and franchise that, under the direction of Lovie Smith, was a solid bunch. A team that you knew was going to win anywhere from 8 to 11 games, be in contention to go to the postseason, and really be a solid bunch. Every now and again, you'd get your occasional slip up. They'd win maybe 7 games. But for the most part, Lovie Smith was a very solid head coach that had a pulse of this team at times. But let's talk about it. We start at the top here. Out with the old head coach Lovie Smith. And this was a controversial firing here because he won 10 games in 2012. I mean, how many coaches win 10 games and get canned in the same season? It does not happen very often, but that just goes to show you how long Lovie Smith has been with the Bears, and sometimes you just wear out your welcome in one location. And that also speaks volumes to the fact that the Bears are tired of running in place. This organization is tired of running in place. It's almost like you're on a hamster wheel. You're running, but you're not going anywhere. And with Lovie Smith in 2011, the Bears got off to a solid start. I want to believe the Bears were 7-3, playing really good football. They were a dangerous team at one point. Then the injuries took a hold of this team. Cutler goes down, so does Forte. That's really 90% of your offense right there. No quarterback, no running back. This team suffered. You don't make the postseason. Okay, fine. You get to 2012, and the Bears got off to a blistering start. We're talking 7-1. And the defense was playing out of their mind. They were scoring points. This offense was a little iffy, but the defense was playing so well that it didn't matter. It did not matter. This team was playing at a really high level. And it wasn't a matter of if this team was going to make the postseason at one point. It was, where are they going to be seated, and are they going to have home field advantage throughout in the NFC playoffs? That's what we were talking about midway through the season with the Chicago Bears. And then all of a sudden, in classic Lovie Smith fashion, the bottom of this thing just dropped out of this football team. And they couldn't get together on offense. They couldn't find a way to slow teams down defensively enough because this offense wasn't generating points. And then earlier in the season, when the defense was scoring points, it was okay that the offense wasn't scoring. But then all of a sudden, when the defense stopped scoring points, when that faucet got turned off, defensively and they couldn't generate points on the defensive side of football, and his offense actually had to step up and score more than 17 points, they started losing football games. And then when they tried to turn it back up at the end of the season, it was too late. They had fell out of playoff contention. And so Lovie Smith lost his job. And simply put, I think Lovie Smith lost his job because when he needed to put his finger on the pulse of this team, he couldn't do so. Sometimes as a head coach, you got to know when to push certain buttons. You got to get this team to respond at certain times. You can't let the bottom drop out of a season with your football team. When you started the year 7-1, you got to make the postseason. You can't allow this thing to fall off the face of the NFL landscape before you try to pick things back up and get your team where they need to be to make the postseason. This should have never happened. He should have been in the postseason. This team should have been in the postseason in 2012. I don't know if I necessarily agree with the firing, but I definitely understand it. I know why the Bears did it. And from that standpoint, I totally get it. So no more Lovie Smith in Chicago. You look at offensive coordinator Mike Tice. Here's a guy that in 2011 was your offensive line coach, was elevated to offensive coordinator in 2012 after Mike Martz was not back. And I thought he would have a better grasp of what this offense needed to do because he had intimate knowledge of the offensive line. I thought he'd be able to mix and match pieces and parts, get the right guys on this offensive line to get this offense better, because I thought the crux of the problem in Chicago offensively was the offensive line. If you don't have time, if your quarterback does not have the time nor the space, your running back doesn't have the space, you can't be effective as an offense. Everything starts up front, on the offense, on the defense, both ways. It starts up front in the trenches on those lines. And offensively, I thought Mike Tice coming over from the offensive line side of things, he'd be able to figure out what was wrong with this offense by fixing this offensive line first and foremost. Simply wasn't able to do it. This offensive line was still a very iffy at best, and that's probably putting it a little bit nicely, but this offensive line was very inconsistent. They were at times horrendous. Jay Cutler, as always in Chicago, was on the run, running for his life at times, and so this offense wasn't good in 2012. And again, that's putting it kindly. This offense was not good. They were probably single-handedly responsible for this team not making the postseason. You could put it on the shoulders of this offense. They were not good in 2012, so Mike Tice is out. Defensive coordinator Rob Marinelli, simply a product of Lovie Smith no longer being your head coach. I've talked about this before. I'll say it again. When your head coach goes, that's the first domino in the rest of the dominoes that are going to fall. All the coaches are most likely going to be fired as well. All those guys are going to be released. I thought Rob Marinelli did a wonderful job as defensive coordinator in 2012. This defense was playing off the charts at one point in 2012. And so if not for the firing of Lovie Smith, this guy is back, and there's not even a question of it. But because Lovie Smith was shown the door, given the pink slip, all of his coaches were pushed out of the door as well. And so no more Rob Marinelli as your defensive coordinator. You look at quarterback Jason Campbell. Man, did I think this was going to be a match made in heaven or what? I said, we saw what happened in 2011 when Cutler went down, and we know Cutler can get injured, will get injured. And so you got to have a guy that is behind Jay Cutler that you trust, that can come in for a 4 or 6 game stretch and keep the ship afloat until Cutler comes back. And in 2011, you had Caleb Haney. It did not work out. Caleb Haney fell flat on his face. That was part of the reason that season went down the tubes. So you thought, okay, Jason Campbell comes over, and this is exactly what you need. A guy that has been a starter in this league, isn't a world beater, but he won't lose football games for you. He'll come in, he'll manage the game. He'll do everything you need him to do to have you in a position to win football games. And with the way this defense was playing, you thought, hey, Jason Campbell is a perfect fit for this team. He was anything but. I was so disappointed with his tenure in Chicago. I thought there was nothing good that you could take from Jason Campbell's stint in Chicago. Nothing. And some of it was Jason Campbell's doing. A lot of it was this offensive line. I mean, that game against the San Francisco 49ers in San Francisco on Monday night, one of the worst offensive line performances I've ever seen. Jason Campbell literally quit that night. I mean, and I couldn't blame him. This offensive line did not protect him. They didn't give him a chance. He was obliterated in that game. And so Jason Campbell never fit in with Chicago. He wasn't given an opportunity by this offensive line. And so he's now gone. He's in Cleveland. I think that it's best for both parties involved that Jason Campbell is no longer on this roster. Look at tight end Matt Spaeth. I say this all the time. Every team in the league needs a blocking tight end. Don't care who you are. Don't care what your scheme is. You need a blocking tight end. For the Bears, Matt Spaeth was their blocking tight end. He went back to Pittsburgh where he was drafted. You don't have him on your roster anymore. Have to find a new blocking tight end. You look at tight end Kellen Davis. What a disappointment this guy was. And I was high on him coming out of Michigan State. I call him BB for short. Big bum is what I call him because this guy is 6'7", about 265, 270, 275. Huge. Should be an excellent target for Jay Cutler. Should have been a guy that would give you a huge space and opportunity to throw him the football. At his size, he should be boxing guys out. He should have been going to the school of Tony Gonzalez and just using that frame to shield guys away from the football, to give Jay Cutler an inviting target to throw the football to. This guy never really got it as a tight end. He didn't understand what he needed to do as a tight end to get open, to give himself an opportunity to make plays in this offense. I didn't even think he was that great of a blocker either. And so I was highly disappointed in Kellen Davis. I think the Bears were too. And so now BB is off to Cleveland to see if he can resurrect his career in Cleveland with the Browns. He's no longer on your roster. You look at offensive guard Lance Lewis. Here's a guy that, to me, I thought was probably one of your better offensive linemen till he got injured around week 10 or so, tore the ACL. His season was done, and his stint in Chicago was done as well. And so he's now in Miami. I think he's a really good offensive lineman that simply got hurt, and the Bears said, okay, we're going to move on from Lance Lewis. You look at guard Chilo Richau, and here's a guy you got over from the San Francisco 49ers, and you thought maybe this guy can come over and help us on the offensive line. He started half of the season for you, and he was okay. He was okay. I'm not sure if you felt like he was the answer, though, long-term at the guard position. He's moved on. He went back out west, now with the Arizona Cardinals. No more Chilo Richau for you in Chicago. You look at offensive guard Chris Spencer. There's another guy that started a boatload of games for you over the last 2 seasons. It was solid. Again, he wasn't the problem, but he was part of the problem in Chicago. And so he had his moments where he was solid. He had his moments where he was just beaten to a pulp. And so Chris Spencer, no longer on your football team. You move on to cornerback DJ Moore. Here's a guy you drafted, homegrown product here in DJ Moore. Solid, feisty 5'9" corner. Not a guy necessarily you want out wide on the edges per se, but he's feisty. He competes. Solid defender. He's now in Carolina with the Panthers, so no more DJ Moore on this roster. You look at linebacker Geno Hayes. You saw this guy twice a year in Tampa Bay. You thought maybe this guy had a little something. Maybe we didn't see the best of Geno Hayes. You bring him on board and you realize, nope, there's nothing more to Geno Hayes. This guy's an average linebacker in every sense of the word. So you realize quickly, not much here. Let's just go on without Geno Hayes. And so he's no longer on your roster. You look at linebacker Nick Roach. Nick Roach was the other guy. There was Urlacher, there was Briggs, and then the other guy. And Nick Roach was that other guy. You never heard about him. No one ever talked about Nick Roach. He was the quiet and forgotten man on this defense, but he did his job, very human-like. You put him in a position, he makes a tackle. He's not going to do anything flashy, and that's why a lot of people didn't know that Nick Roach was even starting on this football team, because he was overshadowed, of course, by Lance Briggs, by Brian Urlacher. They made the interceptions. They forced the fumbles. He was just a guy that, when in the right position, would make a tackle, simply put. And so Nick Roach off to Oakland to do the same exact thing he did in Chicago. Be a quiet linebacker that does his job and is anonymous on the football field. So he's a guy you're going to miss, but I think you can fill that void very easily with another guy. We'll talk about some of the guys you brought onto this roster to do just that. You look at linebacker Brian Urlacher. Wow. This is one of those inauspicious moves where you're just like, that had an ending that I didn't see coming, because I said that Brian Urlacher can't play for another football team. I knew that for sure. There was no doubt in my mind that Brian Urlacher would always be a Chicago Bear. Did I see it ending this way? No. I said they'll find a way to, and I had said this numerous times in the offseason, they'll find a way to make this thing work. He'll sign a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal, and he'll be back in Chicago. The skill set was definitely beginning to wane. Not beginning. It had already started to wane. And he wasn't the same guy. The injuries were taking their toll, but he still was productive to a certain extent. And so I said he'll be back. If nothing else, just to be an emotional leader, much like Ray Lewis in Baltimore. He'll be that guy that's around as an emotional leader. He'll still be somewhat productive, and he'll ride out and off into the sunset when it's his time to go. But you get this new staff, and if Lovie Smith is still here, I'll put it this way. If Lovie Smith is still here, Urlacher is on this roster. But because of the new management with Mark Tresman and the new group that's in Chicago and the way they feel, they said, look, man, we're taking a hardline stance here. I'm going to write a number on a sheet of paper. I'm going to fold it up into a nice little tight square. I'm going to slide it across the table. I want you to open it up. Tell me what you think. If you don't like it, you can write a number on a sheet of paper, slide it back across the table. Make sure you fold it up in a nice, tight, neat package. Slide it across the table. I'll take a look at it. If I don't like the number, I'll tell you that that first number that I wrote down is the number that we're going to run with. And if you don't like it, then we'll just part ways. And Urlacher got that sheet of paper, opened it up, and you know how you're smiling, someone's telling you a joke, and they're laughing before they finish the joke, so you're thinking it's going to be funny. And so you got that smile already on your face because you're ready to laugh too. And they get to the end of the joke, and it's not funny. And you go, that's what Urlacher did. He was smiling. Okay, let me see what you guys got for me. I want to see. Really? After 13 years of service, this is what you think of me? This is what I get? Urlacher went about it the wrong way. Look, for what you are at this point in your career, and for what we're looking for you to bring to the table, this is what you're worth. That's the number they slid across the table. Urlacher was looking for, hey, this is what I've done for you over 13 years of service. This is what I want in return for what I've been for this franchise. And it doesn't work that way. This isn't a, hey, I need to be paid because of what I've been. This league is about being paid for what you can do for me now and into the future. And so it's a what have you done for me lately league. He knows that, and I thought he went about this the wrong way. Now, could the Bears have handled this differently? Of course. Both of these parties involved have culpability here, but at the end of the day, this was probably the best for the Bears. Urlacher wasn't going to move the needle one way or the other in terms of production for this team. I think you could have went younger, and I think that's what the Bears thought too. And if he didn't want to settle for the number that they had in mind, he had to move on. And so kind of a little dicey situation on how this thing all ended up, but Urlacher decided to retire. He couldn't play for another team. He probably had some other teams that were interested, but at the end of the day, don't tarnish your legacy as a Bear by going to play for the Vikings, by going to play for the Cowboys. Remain a Bear. And yeah, he's a little salty right now. He's saying some crazy things out of his mouth. He said that he doesn't want to see the Bears win a championship. Does he mean that? You damn right he means that. He's serious about that. He may say it tongue in cheek. He means that though. He's a little bit salty right now. There's some animosity under the surface because of how this thing was handled. But at the end of the day, he'll be fine. He'll be in that Ring of Fame eventually. He'll get into the Hall of Fame. All of this will blow over, much like the Brett Favre situation in Green Bay. It'll all be okay at the end of the day. But he's no longer a Chicago Bear, and Brian Urlacher will forever be a Chicago Bear. But in the physical sense, he's no longer on this roster. You look at defensive end, Israel Adonijah. Here was a guy that I thought it was mandatory to have this guy back, right? I mean, 7 sacks, limited duty. Why not? I thought Israel Adonijah was a guy that you bring back. I know you got Shea McClellan, and you want to start getting this guy more snaps. You want this guy to show you why you spent the first-round pick on him out of Boise State. But you're telling me you can't use a guy like Israel Adonijah on your roster that can get to the quarterback? I just didn't understand what the hesitation was here and why it took so long for you to even start talking to this guy. And he eventually went to a divisional foe in the Detroit Lions. I mean, this one made no sense for me. I thought Israel Adonijah should have been back. He's not. He's now in Detroit, and I think that's your loss, not having Israel Adonijah back. You look at defensive tackle Amobi Okoye. Here's a guy that came into the league relatively young out of Louisville. I mean, this is a young guy that came from overseas, was about 19 when he came into the National Football League. And so he had a lot of growing to do. Texans drafted him, and I thought he wasn't ready yet. Even though his body was ready, I don't think he was mentally ready for the NFL game. And I thought it was going to take him a while, and he came over to Chicago, and I thought maybe now that he's a little bit seasoned and a little bit older, maybe this Bears team with a lot of veterans that can show him the tricks of the trade, we're going to help him out. He had his best season of his career, I think, with the Bears, and I thought maybe he was on the up and up, but just too inconsistent. The Bears said, hey, you're a solid defender, but we can do better, and he's no longer in Chicago. You look at defensive tackle Matt Toyena, and Toyena just always seemed injured to me. Solid defender, a guy that can help you in the run game, occasionally could get pressure on the quarterback, just always seemed to be banged up. And at the end of the day, if you're not healthy, you can't help me. He's no longer on this Bears roster. And so that's out with the old in Chicago. A lot of controversial moves here with the Bears. A lot of guys that you thought might work out, they didn't work out. Some guys that, frankly, this new staff came in, they assessed them and said, hey, you're gone. And some of these guys just got to Chicago a season ago. You look at a guy like Chilo Richau. You look at a guy like Geno Hayes. These are all guys that just got here, and they're out. And that's what a new staff will do. They'll come in, assess guys, and say, hey, you're of no use to me. You're out of here. And so old staff out. Let's get to the end with the new now, and let's see what the Bears are bringing to the table in the form of new coaches and players. So you look at this Chicago Bears team, and we go in with the new one. We start at the top with head coach Mark Trestman. Here's a guy that is an NFL guy. A lot of people don't know where this guy came from. Yes, he came from the Canadian Football League, but he was in the NFL. He was part of the coaching staff that helped Steve Young win an MVP and was one of the best quarterbacks in the league in San Francisco. He was part of the Oakland Raiders staff that helped Rich Gannon win the MVP and get to the Super Bowl. So this guy has been in the league, and he's here for one reason only, because he's a quarterback guru. He's a guy that understands the quarterback position. I just told you he helped 2 quarterbacks win the MVP and be at the top of the profession. And so they know that Mark Trestman understands the quarterback position. And they got one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league on their team, yet we're still talking about potential, and we're 8 years into the career of Jay Cutler. So now we're past the point of potential. You're either good or you're not. And so now they're trying to pull everything that Jay Cutler has out of that bag. He's got a lot of tools in that bag. He just doesn't use half of them. And so it's Mark Trestman's job to come in and get the most out of this Bears offense, but more importantly, the most out of Jay Cutler. Because if you pull the most out of Jay Cutler, you'll get the maximum efficiency out of this Bears offense. They go hand in hand. And Mark Tresman's job is to come in and get everything he can, squeeze every bit of talent out of that rag known as Jay Cutler. And so we'll see if Mark Tresman can get this team back to the postseason and give them a shot to do some damage in the playoffs. You look at offensive coordinator Aaron Kromer. Everyone that is here has a specific role. And Kromer was hired as offensive coordinator to do what offensive coordinator Mike Tice couldn't do. And that's get this offensive line in check. This offensive line has to be intact, and they have to protect for this offense to do anything. That's been the biggest problem in Chicago for the last 3 seasons, is this offensive line has not been consistent. And so Aaron Kromer is a guy that comes from New Orleans. He was the interim head coach in New Orleans, so he knows a little bit about calling plays and how to run things. And so he's got his feet wet with that aspect of being an offensive coordinator. Now he's got to focus in on what he's really good at, which is coaching up the offensive line. And so he's going to come in. He's got a guy coming in with him in Jamon Bushrod that he's very familiar with. And so you got to know that Aaron Kromer's first goal, get this offensive line in check. If he can do that, I think this offensive unit will flow as a group. And the offensive line is the key. And so Aaron Kromer comes in, and that's the thing you got to look for. You look at defensive coordinator Mel Tucker. Here's a guy coming over from Jacksonville. Same title in Jacksonville. Defensive coordinator, was really good. I thought the Jaguars, for how bad they've been over the years, the defense is always solid. Doesn't matter how bad the offense is, how anemic it is, the defense always keeps them in ball games. Testament to what Mel Tucker was able to do, because the Jacksonville Jaguars aren't the most talented team on defense, but he used to get everything he could out of what they had. And so he's over now with the Bears as the defensive coordinator, and I think he's going to make a great fit in Chicago as the defensive coordinator. You look at wide receiver Devin Aromashadu. And I used to be a Devin Aromashadu fan. I won't say fan, I'll say supporter, because I thought this guy had talent, and that if he just was given the opportunity, he was in Chicago before. He was here. And I thought, he's not getting enough opportunities in Chicago. Maybe if he goes somewhere else where they're starving for receiver help and this guy is given an opportunity, he'll show out. And that's what happened. He went to Minnesota. We all know the struggles of the Vikings to get the football to guys out wide that didn't have a lot of targets. And so he goes to Minnesota, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is an opportunity this guy needs. He goes to Minnesota and he does nothing. He did the same thing he was doing in Chicago. And I said, you know what? It's not the situation. It's not the opportunity. It's you. And so I did a whole 180 turn on Devin Aromashadu. I used to be a guy that thought that he had a lot of potential in this league. I just don't anymore. It's no longer Devin Aromashadu. It's now, for me, Devin Aromashadu. And so I'm no longer a Devin Aromashadu supporter. Good luck with him in his second stint in Chicago. I don't think this guy is a guy that can help you necessarily. You look at tight end Martellus Bennett. He got a new lease on life last year with the Giants. After a slow start to his career in Dallas, it looked like he was going to be one of these guys that just was your standard run-of-the-mill tight ends with a lot of talent but never produced in this league. Goes to New York with the Giants, and they get the most out of him. They transform this guy into an athletic, pass-catching target on the football field that was a mismatch for a lot of defenses. And he took that, he ran with it, parlayed it into a payday. He's now in Chicago. You need a tight end. You've been missing a threat at the tight end position ever since Mike Martz was allowed to run Greg Olsen out of town. And so this is a big move for you. Are you getting the Martellus Bennett that was in Dallas, that was a joke, or are you getting the guy that performed in New York in a contract season? I don't know. That's the question you got to ask yourself. Did this guy step up because he knew it was time to get paid? Or is this guy a new tight end? Did he figure it out in New York and now he's a good football player? We'll see. But you got yourself an athletic guy that can move the sticks. Now you just got to see, is he the real deal? You look at tight end Steve Maneri. Got him from the Kansas City Chiefs. I talked about losing a tight end in Matt Spaeth, who was your blocking tight end. Here's your new blocking tight end in Steve Maneri. Not going to catch a lot of passes, not going to do a lot in the passing game, but he'll block his tail off and he'll be really good at it. That's your new blocking tight end, Steve Maneri. You look at offensive guard Evan Britton, guy you got from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Very disappointing tenure in Jacksonville. They spent a second-round pick on this guy. They thought he was going to come in and be one of those bricks, one of those guys that's a foundation of that offensive line for years to come. Didn't work out. Was solid early on, and then it seemed like he got progressively more and more average as the years went on. So now it's a breath of fresh air for him. It's a new environment. You're looking for this guy to come in and help your very stale offensive line. And so let's see if Evan Britton can come in and get one of these guard positions and really hold it down in Chicago. You look at guard Matt Slauson. Here's a guy that started for the Jets. He had an inauspicious start to his career, very inconsistent in New York. I thought he got better as time wore on in New York. Was still a little inconsistent, but he was a lot better than when he first came onto the scene in New York. And so he's a guy that played all 16 games, so he's durable. I think he can help you. You signed him to a one-year deal because I don't think you're totally sold on Matt Slauson either. So this is a huge year for Matt Slauson. If he's looking to get paid, if he plays well and is consistent, I think the Bears will have him back and they will pay him some money. If he's not, he'll be pushed out of the door and he'll be looking for work once again next season. So you look at offensive tackle Jamon Bushrod. This was your big offseason acquisition. This was the guy you were targeting. You needed a left tackle, and you went out and you got Jamon Bushrod. Some people are a little sketchy on Jamon Bushrod. They thought, hey, he was a product of New Orleans and Drew Brees stepping up in that pocket. He's not as tough as you would like as a left tackle. You say what you want about this guy. He got it done for Drew Brees and that New Orleans Saints offense. I think he can do the same thing for Chicago. Eric Cromer has experience with this guy in New Orleans, and I don't think he would have recommended him in Chicago if he didn't think this guy could get it done. Jamon Bushrod is going to be your left tackle. That allows you to take Jamarcus Webb, slide him over to right tackle. So maybe you fixed two positions on your offensive line by fixing one at left tackle with Jamon Bushrod. We'll see, but you got yourself a left tackle. Let's see how it all works out for you now. You look at safety Tom Zbikowski. He's coming over from Indianapolis. Thought he had a very disappointing season in 2012. Here was a guy that was playing good football in Baltimore, goes over to Indianapolis with his coordinator who turned head coach in Chuck Pagano in Indianapolis. Does not fare well in Indy in 2012, and so he moves on. He's now in Chicago, and I think this is a hybrid safety, a guy that can run, that can tackle, that can catch. He can do some things, but you got to put him in the right positions to succeed. If you don't put him in the right positions and he's a fish out of water, he can be exposed. And I think he's a guy that you don't necessarily want to start, but in a platoon role as a guy that can come in and give you 20 to 25 snaps on the defense. When you want to go to a 3 safety look, when you want to drop a guy down into the slot, he can come in and play some safety for you. He's going to help you on special teams as well. I think he's a solid acquisition to your team because he'll help you on special teams. And as a rotational depth safety, I think he can help you in that capacity as well. Look at linebacker James Anderson. Here's a guy that's a high-volume tackler, was really solid in Carolina for a number of years. Much like Nick Roach, very quiet, solid defender. But unlike Nick Roach, this guy can do some other things on the field. He can be noticed. James Anderson is a solid linebacker that I think will ward off a couple of these rookies and keep at least one of them on the bench because he's going to play exceptionally well and he's a veteran presence on his football team. I expect James Anderson to be starting at one of these linebacker positions for you in 2013 because he's a really solid linebacker, more so than the next linebacker on this list, DJ Williams. I think DJ Williams is starting to get to the point in his career where he's hit that apex and he's coming down. He dealt with suspension last year that really derailed his career in Denver. I don't think he's a guy that you necessarily want to start any longer. I think that James Anderson is a little bit better than DJ Williams. We'll see how everyone grades out in the preseason in camp and how the Bears decide to use these linebackers. But DJ Williams is a guy that can help you. He'll help you on special teams. He can help you as depth on this linebacking corps. But with the guys you drafted, with James Anderson, with Lance Briggs still being there, I think that DJ Williams is a guy that does not need to start for this football team. You look at defensive end Turk McBride. Solid defender. As a defensive end, he doesn't really get pressure on the quarterback, but he's solid in the run game. I don't know if he's going to make the roster, and here's why. Here's another defensive end in Kyle Moore that you got over from Buffalo. He spent time in Tampa Bay. You've seen this guy before. I think Kyle Moore has more upside than Turk McBride at this point in his career. And I think you think Kyle Moore is a guy that can also get to the quarterback as well as help you in the run game. I think Turk McBride is more of a guy that can help you in the run game but won't get to the quarterback. I don't see both of these guys making the roster at defensive end. You lose Israel Adonijah, you got to fill in that void. I think it's a one position open at defensive end, and I think these two guys will be battling for that one position, and I think Kyle Moore has the advantage in that battle. We'll see if both of these guys can make the roster or if only one will. If that's the case, I think Kyle Moore is your guy. You look at defensive tackle Cedric Ellis. Much like tight end Martellus Bennett, he needs another chance. In New Orleans, this guy was a first-round pick. And in 2010, he got 6 sacks, and the Saints said, hey, this is why we drafted this guy in the first round out of USC. And since then, he's been inconsistent. You don't know what you're getting from week to week, season to season with Cedric Ellis. And so that's why the New Orleans Saints didn't have him back. He's on your football team, and I think it's a breath of fresh air for Cedric Ellis. He's got to step up, though. He's got to step up. He's got to turn it up. He's got to find that consistency that it takes to last and have longevity in the National Football League. If he continues to be inconsistent, he'll find his way out of this league quickly because you got to be consistent. Teams got to know what they're getting out of you. Snap in, snap out, week in, week out, year in, year out. That's why you hang around in this league, because I know what I'm getting from X said player. I know I can count on him for this. And right now, you can't say that about Cedric Ellis. You don't know what you're getting from this guy. So the Bears hope they're going to get a very motivated defensive tackle that comes in and plays really good football. We'll see what they get, but Cedric Ellis has to step up. So that's in with the new in terms of your new coaching staff, any trades, any offseason acquisitions. Let's move on to draft picks here. You look at offensive lineman Kyle Long, and he's an offensive lineman because I think a lot of people feel like he's better suited at guard, but this guy can play tackle. He did at Oregon, so we'll see what Kyle Long is in the league. I think he's going to be a guard for the Chicago Bears, but he has the ability to kick outside. He was a first-round pick. You look at linebacker John Bostic in the second round, linebacker Kasim Green in the fourth round. Out of Rutgers, you look at offensive tackle Jordan Mills in the fifth round, linebacker Cornelius Washington in the sixth round, and rounding out your draft, wide receiver Marquise Wilson in the seventh round. If you're looking for an extensive breakdown of this draft of the Chicago Bears, I will turn you over to the 2013 NFL Draft Wrap-Up series that I've done on every team in the league, including the Chicago Bears. So if you're looking for an extensive breakdown, a thorough breakdown and analysis of each and every one of these players, turn to the 2013 NFL Draft Wrap-Up series. So we go from players that are going to make this roster or have a legitimate shot at making this roster to guys that are on the outside looking in, the guys that are long shots to make this roster. I'm talking about undrafted free agent rookies. Let's run down this list quickly. There are 12 in all. We start with running back Michael Ford out of LSU, wide receiver Marcus Rucker out of Memphis, wide receiver Josh Lenz out of Iowa State, offensive tackle A.J. Lindman out of Toledo, center P.J. Longeren out of LSU, cornerback C.J. Wilson out of NC State, cornerback DeMontre Hurst out of Oklahoma, defensive tackle Zach Minter out of Montana State, defensive tackle Christian Tupu out of USC, defensive tackle Brent Russell out of Georgia Southern, punter Tress Way out of Oklahoma, and rounding out the group, kicker Austin Signer out of Eastern Illinois. And so these guys all are looking to try to make a dent onto this roster. And with a new coaching staff, there's opportunity. With a new coaching staff comes opportunity for guys that are undrafted, because much like some of these guys on this list out with the old, I didn't bring you in here. Only these free agent acquisitions and draft picks are safe because, hey, I brought these guys in here. I feel like they can fit my system. That's why I went out and got them. These other guys that are holdovers from the last regime, they're not safe because I don't know you. I didn't bring you here. And frankly, if I don't like what I see out of you in practice and on tape, I can get rid of you and bring in one of these guys that I did bring in as an undrafted free agent that I think can fit what I want to do. And so these guys have a legitimate shot. Wouldn't be surprised if 2 or 3 of these guys crack this roster. Wouldn't surprise me if none of these guys made this roster. It's very fickle with these undrafted free agents because sometimes you see why guys are undrafted. Other times you say, hey, we got a diamond in the rough here. So we'll see if any of these guys are able to crack this roster. So you go from in with the new to any philosophical changes in Chicago. So you look at any philosophical changes for the Chicago Bears, and you got to start with the offensive side of the football. Of course, your head coach, Mark Tresman, is an offensive-minded head coach. You go from Lovie Smith, who was more defensive-oriented, to a head coach that is more offensive-oriented. And I think that was needed in Chicago because this offense has been anemic at times in Chicago. And you need this team to step up offensively because this defense isn't getting any younger. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But offensively, Mark Tresman, I just talked about it, is here to get the best out of Jay Cutler, to get everything he can out of Jay Cutler and his offense. And so I expect this offense to be better in 2013, immensely better. You're going to run the football. Don't think for 1 second because Mark Tresman is a quarterback guru that he won't run the football. Matt Forte is still going to get the football. Michael Bush is going to offset Matt Forte. Guys are still going to get the football in the running game. But where you're going to see the most impact on this offense is definitely in the passing game. I think that it's going to be better coordinated is the passing game. I think this offensive line with Aaron Cromer coming over from New Orleans, and for you guys to go out and really finally upgrade this offensive line and stop trying to put a Band-Aid on something that needed surgery. I thought in this offseason, you put together a magnificent surgical approach to this offensive line because it was needed. I thought for too long, you tried to put Band-Aids on a situation that needed to be sewn up. And so you go get Jamon Bushrod, you draft Kyle Long, you go out and get a couple of free agents in Slauson and other guys that you brought into the mix that you think can help. And now you got to see if these guys can pan out. You also brought in Eben Britton. And so let's see if you can find enough parts to make this thing work. You slide Jamarcus Webb over to right tackle. I think the offensive line will be fine. Now you got to look for Cutler to find weapons. And I think a guy like Brandon Marshall is going to be huge. He was huge last year. I expect him to be huge again. But the guy that I'm really looking forward to stepping up is Alshon Jeffrey. He's got to step up this year. Thought he dropped a lot of passes that were catchable last season. And he's got the skill set. He's got the size. He's got everything you're looking for. Now he's just got to have the focus. Attention to detail. Catch the football before you try to run and make a play. Do all the little things that it takes to be a really good receiver in this league. And I think I'm looking for him to take that next step. Earl Bennett has to stay healthy so he can help you in that slot. I think Devin Hester now focusing back on special teams is going to be a huge help to this team because I don't think he was a guy that was necessarily going to help you all that much as a receiver, but we know what this guy can be when he's focused in on the special teams aspect of the game. So like a lot of the things that Tresman has done coming in. And so this offense is going to be better because I think the offensive line, first and foremost, will be addressed and will be better. And that will allow Cutler the time to go down the field and make things happen. And I think this offense as a whole is going to surprise a lot of people in Chicago. You move over to the defensive side of the football, and Mel Tucker is as solid as it gets as a defensive coordinator in this league, and he's going to come in and continue to make this Bears defense a solid group. This is an older group. Now, you've brought in a young infusion of talent, and that was necessary. But you look at a guy like James Anderson, who will probably start. He's an older linebacker. You look at Lance Briggs, who is your best linebacker. He's definitely older. You look at your best cornerback and Charles Peanut Tillman. He's an older defensive back. And so these are all guys that aren't getting any younger. And so you got to start winning now. The time is now in Chicago. And you're looking to blend a lot of the young, talented guys that you brought in with some of these aging veterans to see if you can really get something going on the defensive side of the football. No more Urlacher, so that's going to be a change. No more Nick Roach. So guys have to come in and step in and help this defense. Julius Peppers isn't getting any younger either. You're looking for Shea McClellan to step up at defensive end now. And so Henry Melton has not gotten that long-term deal yet, but you got him back on the franchise tag. This guy's a beast. You got to find a way to sign him up long-term. But I think this is going to be a solid defensive group. I expect them to be just as they were in 2012. I do not expect them to force as many turnovers. I do not expect them to score as many points as they did as a defensive group. I mean, last year was an anomaly. That was mind-boggling. I mean, that was absolutely crazy to me. I mean, the rate at which this defense was scoring was off the charts. I've never seen anything like that in all my years of watching football. This defense was amazing last year at turning teams over. And not just turning them over, but turning it into immediate points. And so now I think this offense being better, because I think this Bears offense will be better in 2013. Can this defense sustain a level of play that will allow this offense to get better and have this team get better and not have the offense get better, but the defense drop off and have that balance not be there? And so we'll see if this defense will be up to par, because you've got new pieces. You've got guys that are a year older. You've got a lot of moving parts. You got a new defensive coordinator. Things have to gel. They have to buy into his system. And we'll see, because this isn't a cover two defense anymore. And I don't know if Mel Tucker will come in and hold on to a lot of those cover two principles, but he played a lot of different defenses in Jacksonville, and it wasn't just predicated on a lot of cover two shell. And so we'll see, because that's what the Bears are best at. And I think he knows that, and I think he'll hold on to some of those principles, but he'll also try and do some other things to shake this defense up. We'll see. We'll see what the Bears are in 2013, but I know this much. It's a different football team, and they're looking to make some noise in the NFC North. And if they want to start making headway in this division, it starts on the offensive and defensive lines. And so that's the key for this Bears team in this season if they want to make some noise and get back to the postseason. So that's what's new in Chicago. Like the content? Want more? Sub up.